you very much for joining our FTP session, our first one for this year. And yes, it is February. So this is a really exciting one to kick the year off with. And I am going to start sharing my presentation. So yes, this is a really exciting one to kick the year off with, and I think we've had a lot of interest in this, and we've spoken to many of you who are interested in this, and so this is a great opportunity for us to also share some of the partnership work that we've been doing. So really, we want to look at how can we use data, or that data-driven kind of regeneration for tourism and events, and how we can map that change. And I'm delighted to be joined this morning. I'm really just here to facilitate, but to be joined by our partners Because and Murmuration. And we have Simon Kløvgaard and Nawaz joining us from Because, who will be telling us a bit more about their work, and Tarek Habib from Murmuration. So really great people to join us. And we've been working with them over the last, I don't know, 6+ months to really explore the work that they're doing, that we're doing, how we can work together, and how we can work together for the benefit of all our partners and destinations. And so really excited to share some more of that today. I have a very brief kind of update on the GDS-Index, which will, on the timeline, which will interest those of you who are taking part in that this year. And then obviously we're going to hear from our partners and hear more about Because and Murmuration. A little bit of housekeeping. The session is being recorded, but you will receive kind of the recording of the webinar and the slides after the session. So please do share this with colleagues that might be interested, or if you just want to review what we've talked about. The chat box is always available, so please share any thoughts, questions, insights as we go along. We will have the opportunity to ask questions at the end of each kind of presentation. So, but don't feel like you need to save them up. Feel free to put them in the chat. You can raise your hand to speak, especially in the Q&A, so we can have an orderly chat, so that would be great. And then, yes, feel free to use the reactions in Zoom if you want to applaud or give us a thumbs up. That's great. That was the housekeeping. The GDS-Index 2025. Again, can't believe that it's almost time again, which is very exciting. So this is the timeline for this year's GDS-Index. So we are looking to launch the 2025 GDS-Index criteria in the next few weeks, by the end of February. And those of you that have taken part in the index, we can assure you that we're not planning any big changes, but still there will be some minor changes. So that's something that you can look forward to. But I'm sure many of you have started working on this already. Then the index this year opens a little bit earlier than last year. So in the middle of March, the 17th of March, and then you have until the middle of May, so the usual 2 months before the destination submission. And then it comes back to us for round one. So by the middle of June, many of you will get it back staggered, but by the middle of June, that first round of assessment will be completed. And then it's in that phased piece around the destinations have 2 weeks to update their submission. And then we do a final review. We do, after the final review, we do also have a quality assurance piece where we check each other's work, especially on some of our top 40 destinations. And that's also when we have our Innovation Award application. So please do keep that in mind as you do this. I'm sure many of you will come across some amazing projects that are happening in your destination that you're participating in, that you're developing. So please do put in one of those applications for the Innovation Award. It's always great to see all the work that's happening. And, you have to be in it to win it, and get that recognition. And then obviously we'll also be doing the data analysis and ask you for feedback. And then the GDS Awards and the results will be announced in the autumn, where we have the specific dates is still to be confirmed. So similar kind of rundown, but a little bit earlier than last year's, to maybe stay out of the summer holidays a little bit and give everybody a bit more time there. So if you have any questions, do let us know. Great. So straight away, I would love to hand over to Because, to Simon and to Asam, who can tell us a little bit more about their kind of sustainability data hub. And for many of you, if you haven't heard about what they do, although it's definitely a rising star, and I'm sure many of you have heard, they do some really exciting work about collecting data on certification, and especially with the index in mind, I'm sure that will be particularly interesting, but they do so much more beyond that. So it will be great to see what they can do for you and for us. And I'll hand over to you, Simon. I'll just stop sharing now.
Thank you so much, and hello everyone. So I'll just start sharing my screen. Please just, can I get a thumbs up that you can see my screen now? Perfect. Awesome. Yeah. Perfect. Brilliant. Thank you so much. And good morning, everyone. Very excited to be here, and thanks a lot for the opportunity to present what we do and tell more about certifications and how you can manage them. I have my colleague Asam with me today, who's been working very close with Visit England on a very interesting case that we'll dig a little bit deeper into later in the presentation. But I think first, for those of you who haven't met me, I might have met some of you. I was at the GDS Awards in Bruges in October. Very exciting, and really appreciate how you will share data, share knowledge with each other and with me. Gave me a good overview of what you struggle with today. So that's going to be the focus of today's presentation. But before jumping into that, I think a short presentation of both of us. I'm Simon. I'm doing sales and partnership at Because. I've been talking to GDS since I started at Because. Very interesting conversations in how we together can help destinations track certifications and also help partners in each destination to achieve their KPIs. I come with a background from many different industries, but I love the travel industry, which we're focusing on, and bringing a lot of knowledge in how we can partner and work together. Asam.
Thanks, Simon. I'm Asam, the head of sales in the company. Joined 1.5 years ago, which is a lot of time in a startup. Been in several startups before that, so I've felt the journey and how it is to take a smaller team of people to faster scale. So I've built up the sales team here. As Simon mentioned, I've been a part of the destination data dashboards and everything that we've created from day one, and I'll dig deeper into that a bit later in the presentation.
Fantastic. So what we're going to talk about today is how we help destinations change the way of actually mapping data, and how we do it is basically something I'll dig into in the next slide. But today's agenda, we have been through the introduction. We look at the challenge that we've faced from our conversations with many destinations now, and also some of our clients that we're working with and partners we're working with. We're going to talk a lot about the solution as well, the impact, and then we're going to wrap it up with also a case study on Visit England, what we have done and how we got into it. So basically what we have created a centralized data hub. We figured when we started 5 years ago that there's already a lot of data sharing in the hospitality industry, which is great, and that created a great foundation for us to get started. But we also figured that there's a lot of manual processes in the way, not just destinations, but also travel agencies, hotels, restaurants, basically the ones that you all are working with are sharing the data. You all work in Excel, you work in emails, survey monkeys, many different ways. So we wanted to create a hub where we could take all that data in from one stakeholder and create an opportunity for you to actually share the data to the stakeholders that you want to share the data with. If it's the traveler for marketing and PR, If it's for compliancy, because you need to report to somebody, could be government that you need to report to in terms of a specific area, could be that you want to know more about the current landscape to actually set some KPIs that you can work towards and how you can benchmark on those. So that's a little bit about the solution that we've created. We've done it by doing an open data sharing approach for both collect and map sustainability data from both certifications, but also for data that we get directly from all the hotels that we're working with. And I think a very important thing is we go beyond compliance. We're not just another compliance platform, because we want to help you from stage one on the sustainability journey in understanding where are you today and where do you want to go. And we want to do that by data-driven decisions. Anything to add, Asam, because obviously you've been here?
I think it was good. You can continue.
Good. So I talked about the data hub that we have created. A hub, it's very important that we place ourselves in the middle. We are only focusing on hospitality and travel. Reason why is that we understood that there's many layers that we need to understand in a specific market. So instead of going out agnostic and try to understand fashion, food, travel, everything, we narrowed it in and said we just want to understand the travel industry. We want to be experts. We want to create a solution with travel-specific solutions within for all our partners to benefit from that. So we're working with different kind of companies within the industry. So we work with all Horesto chains. So work with companies like Accor, Radisson, or Rascom. We are partnering with Volt, if some of you are familiar with them, on the restaurant side to help you understand the landscape in restaurants as well, even better. It's if we look at the hotels where they are today, they're very developed in the way they both report and also in the way that they're trying to track, where the restaurants are the next big thing as we see it. Because the development goes one way, all companies want to be more sustainable. And from our experience and what we see now is that the certification is a great way to start. So when we started 5 years ago, basically our company was funded 5 years ago. We launched our product with Booking.com, huge marketplace. I think most of you are familiar with Booking.com. But they've tried for many years to solve a challenge in terms of how they can show eco-labels on Booking.com to the travelers on each hotel that they're displaying. They haven't managed because, as mentioned in the beginning, the data is very fragmented. There is a lot of manual processes. The certifications, the way they work with data is still in Excel sheets, emails. I think from what I've talked to a lot of destinations, you will be very familiar with how they do that. So we figured if we could create that centralized hub where we could take all the data directly from all the certifications like Green Key, Green Tourism, Nordic Swan, EcoStars, Leth, all of these certifications, if we could take that data into a hub, have a mapping algorithm, take data directly from a marketplace or destination, for example, would be able to give an output to our partner and then give an understanding about the landscape of where you are today. It will make it a lot easier for you to start there because setting a KPI, as many of you already doing in terms of certified partners, I think it's very important to understand where are you today. And my next question would be, how would you track it? Because I also know that that's also a challenge, that tracking this is really difficult. But that's a little bit about the hub that we've created. We also have compliancy frameworks. We have industry frameworks from the travel industry. that we have in our platform.
I can just add on here that we're directly connected to the certifications you see on the left bottom side. So around 64 certifications sends data directly to us. So we're like the middleman sending the data to all the OTAs. So when you go to booking.com and see a certification label on a hotel, that data runs through us. And we only work with Travelist and GSTC recognized certifications. So that's our stamp of proof when we send the data.
And we do that to make sure that the data is audited somehow, that we are verifying, because relying on non-verified data might be, I'll say, it's not a thing that you should go out and do. One thing is that's the manual work, but the other thing is greenwashing, and that's what we want to avoid. That's why we're connected directly to the certifications. We already touched a little bit upon the challenges, but basically what we want to do is give destinations insight so you can live up to your goals. That's I think that's the main thing. Why we're doing it and how we're solving it is that we know that you met like many destinations, and it's not just destinations, it comes from marketplaces as mentioned, and many others manually track certifications and rely on self-reported data directly from the hotels. And that's the process before and without us. If you have self-reported data, then you need to check with the hotel that they actually still, like, the certification is not expired, etc. So there is a lot of steps in between that we are overcoming with our solution. And I think also that the lack of visibility, I know that a lot of you, when you go out, you know the local certifications within your area. For example, in the UK, you have green tourism, which is huge. In Canada, you have there is Green Key, which are huge certifications, and also the ones which are actually probably the most like the ones most partners in their networks have, but to that still doesn't give the full picture, and only 50%. And for you, when you report into, for example, the GDS-Index, when they ask about certified partners in your area, it's important to give a more accurate picture of how you're performing with your partners today. It will increase your scoring in the system, but it will also give a better overview for you to keep working on your KPIs. And also, this could help encourage more hotels to start engage with sustainability initiatives. I think that's a very important start, and I think you play a very important role in encourage them to get started if they haven't started yet. What we see is the largest organizations as of today has already started, which is great, but we need the smaller ones to get started as well. And then we can, of course, offer impact calculations on meeting and events, which I know is also a huge topic for you. And we do that with a partnership that we have with WSHA, so World Sustainable Hospitality Alliance. They have created a calculation, an industry calculator for how to calculate carbon footprint for hotels and water measurements. And that can be used also to calculate meeting and events. So our goal for the destinations, we want to feed just the sustainability strategy with validated data from your whole supply chain. And there's a lot of suppliers, there's a lot of partners that you're working with that you will collect. If we look at where we are today, we're basically offering certification data on more than 50,000 hotels, restaurants, attractions, everything within hospitality. We have that data already ready to feed into your systems and enrich your data even more than it is today. And we receive data from more than 60 recognized eco certifications as of today. So why are we doing it? We're doing it to help you live up to your goals. We touched upon that already. but everything that we do is to create automation, and we're not here to remove any, we get anyone to lose their jobs or anything, but we actually want to support you in excelling your job and do even better and focus on actually making a change and not just sit and analyze. I think that's very, very important. We have created a self-assessment tool for you to collect data from your partners out there as well. So I think we're trying to cover all aspects of your needs. We are still in the development on how we can build the perfect solution for all of you, but we know that the certification overview is something that most destinations today are struggling with, and along the way we're building new products. We listen to you. We don't do assumptions in what we do, so we built our products, which Asam will also touch upon in the case study with visiting them. We don't build it on assumptions. We build it on data-driven decisions to make sure that we're offering, our offering is the right thing. As mentioned, it will help get them, like our partnership with GDS. I got the question many times by talking to the destination. So how is the partnership with GDS? I think if we look at the long term, we have a lot of goals and ideas in how we want to do it and how we can automate the whole data collecting part. That's not something we have now, but it's something that we're working on with the team of GDS. How can we help each other and help you as a destination in automating, inputting data into the index? That's something coming, but what we have today is that we can give you a better understanding of your certified partners in your market, and that will create a better scoring and understanding of the current landscape. And of course, that ends up with give a better data accuracy, less administration, which is really important, remove all the manual work, and higher engagement for the hotels and other partners that you're working with. Those are just some snapshots from the platform in terms of how you can see it. Because we don't just give you data. We have created a platform where you'll be able to go in and navigate. You can do data collecting. You can see analysis on how you're performing. So here you will be able to see what's the most popular certifications. You can see all the certification represented in your area. You'll be able to see on a map how the split is within your destination. You can see how many certified properties you have. You can see when they're expiring, if they're in progress of getting a certification, all the very important informations that you need. Very important is that we're of course offering the platform alongside with an API to feed directly into your system. So if you have internal dashboards that you want to feed with the data, that is of course possible. So now here you see when you zoomed in, you can see, you get a better understanding on the split in your country. So how are you all performing in your specific destinations? This is for as an NTO, but even as a DMO, you will also be able to zoom in on your city and understand your city better. You will have access to more detailed information about each hotel or partner that you're working with, restaurant, for example. So if they have more than one certification, this will allow you to actually understand what certifications do they have. And also interesting, if they have an expired certification, in this case, for example, green tourism, maybe they don't have a certification anymore. That's a low-hanging fruit for you to actually actively reach out and ask why. But in this case, you can see they skipped green tourism to get green key certification. But you can also see it's soon to expire. So maybe you can actually help them on the journey in keeping the certification and understand their goals as well. So you will have an understanding where you can see how are you in your destination doing compared to globally, So you'll also have an overview of how many green keys are out there, how many buyer scores, green tourists, biosphere, etc. So help you understand how are you doing compared to the rest of the world. If we look at this, also just to be cautious in time, I think that what we've been talking about today, I hope you all get the understanding that the data automation is the key to improve the GDS-Index score, because you need to do an impact. We want to help you do an impact. We've created the whole centralized hub for allow data sharing to become much easier and much better. And also the whole hotel self-assessment certification participation is something that we have done. I haven't gone too much into detail, also to be cautious of time, but I want to do the hotel self-assessment is actually a way for your partners to get certified directly in our platform. We'll happily talk more in depth if you want to learn more about that, but I know that's something which will help you working with your partners, achieving a certification by means getting started on the sustainability journey. So Asam, I will throw the mic to you.
Thanks, Simon. There are some questions I can see in the chat, so I just answered the first ones. You can answer the other ones, or we can take them at the end.
I'm sharing the screen, so it's going to be difficult.
All right, got it.
We'll answer it after.
So yeah, so let's have a real life case. Last year at the GSTC conference, I met several destinations and NTOs as well. I had a good chat with the team from Visit England, and I asked them, do you know the number of certified hotels in your country? And it was I got some qualified guesses, but it was difficult for them to give me a concrete answer because they didn't really have track on it. At that time, we didn't create any dashboard, or we didn't have any structure about the destination product. So I grabbed my laptop and I had my Excel sheet with me, where I could quickly show them an overview of the certified establishments within their country and a number. And they were quite surprised that I could show them that number so quickly, and it's live and updated with audited data. And that's where our first conversation started with Visit England, and they were also our first client. So together with them, we started having different workshops, a lot of meetings in how should we get started. They of course have a larger strategy for their destination, and we talk a lot about how do you get started by having some good data to build your foundation, and then build from there. Of course, there's many things they want to measure in a country. There are many outcomes they would like to calculate, but you need to start somewhere. As we always say, because sustainability is a journey, and we're basically just getting started. Maybe Europe is on level 1 or 2 out of 10. Other parts of the world are still around 0 or -1, as I say sometimes. So, and with all the regulations coming in from Europe, there is a big push towards larger companies and corporates to do something now. You need to have evidence. You need to show what you're doing. You can't just write something in your reports. So with many workshops with Visit England, like Simon showed you before, we created, we are connected to several certifications around the globe with the largest database of certified establishments in the world, and the only as well. So we're chatting with a destination and an NTO. We found out, let's aggregate that data as the first thing and show it in an easier, user-friendly way. So that dashboard you saw some snippets from before is basically our version 1.0 that we call it, like the iPhone 1 some years ago, and see where we are today. So this is the first way we show the data. We have the overview, the expiration, etc. Some easy analytics about the breakdown in your country. Now they've been using that data for a while, and actually next week I'm invited to their internal conference with all the different 40 LVEPs, as they call them, the DMOs in the country, where we will present what Visit England and Because have been working for the past year, and how we can activate all the different destinations within the country to start working with that data. Anything else on that part?
No, I think it's a lot about thinking about what is your dream and where do you want to go, and let's do that together. I think that's how our approach is working with destinations, because we are the ones setting the limit together. So I think that let's put the limit high and help your partners, not just you, but also help your partners to get started. I think that's really, really important. And yeah, we have a lot of data, so let the data live, because that's been the challenge for the certifications. The certifications want their data out there, but are lacking lacking technology. But now we have built the technology to help the data get out there, and the data is definitely worth working on and with. So I think that's the main key takeaway, is that we need the data out, because people has already started. A lot of companies already started on this. So let's help them getting to the next level. And we can do that. We see destinations a lot more like partners than clients, because we need to evolve together to reach the goals and help everyone to reach the goals. And also for communicating, we know from that's also discussions we've had with Visit England and everything, is that we know travelers, they're looking for sustainable choices, but how, like, the importance as of today is also to communicate validated data, and the only validated data source there is out there is certifications. A lot is happening within certifications and sustainability today, because we have Green Claims Directive coming. No one exactly knows what's that going to mean, how it's going to affect the world. It is still to be decided, but we kind of now have an overview of what the different factors are. But we're very aware of them, and we're going to follow that. But still, let's not wait another 2 years, because then we'll keep pushing things. Let's get started with what we have now and help everyone.
Yeah, and back to the Visit England case, they also asked them, so how would you actually gather that data? And usually they would call or contact the certifications and get some kind of Excel sheet, or ask their student employees to spend time on investigating how to get that data. Again, very manual, very fragmented, and not very data-driven or efficient way of working. A lot of hours spent on admin tasks rather than being strategic and build some initiatives with your partners. And I would say from now on, we're talking about how can we make this greater push for their country, and how we can get everybody to work on the same path and in the same direction. I think it's also important to emphasize that hotels are quite advanced in certifications, but we basically get data from. We also have data from Blue Flag, basically on certified beaches around the world, and some of the existing certifications we work with also certify attractions, experiences, restaurants. So for us, it's the same. We can get the data into our solution and send it out to several outputs. And remember that this is only the start. We are a software company first, so we build products with our clients. The next evolution of the data that we have is everybody's talking about, could we get access to all the questions or the criteria the different hotels have answered? And that's the next step that we're working on, because right now you see the eco label, all right, but what does it actually mean, and what did the hotel comply with in order to get this certification? So right now we have a lot of data from GreenKey as the first partner globally. So basically, because it's right now the master data system for GreenKey Global, So that means we are getting the metric data, the underlying metrics under each certification. And that's also our aim throughout this year, to get from more and more certifications so we can start to be more granular and give you some more data. And maybe there are many things that are already answered that you ask the hotels about, or that you need to calculate some metrics within sustainability. So that's going to be the next evolution of the data we have. We're also building some other products along the way on how can establishments getting certified a lot easier. Imagine having a button in the destination dashboard where you have a list of certified hotels and all the other hotels in your city that's not certified, and you can click a button and invite them to get certified. Imagine we can give you recommendations about which certification is popular in your area, or which certification would be a best match for you. So again, as much more data we're getting, as much more different frameworks answered in our solution from OTAs, from hotels, from destinations, that will help us to help you even more.
That's great. Go on.
We have rounded up now, kind of.
No, keep going. Sorry.
I think we kept it within time as well. So, but yeah, we of course invite everyone. If there's anyone who wants to know more, please reach out. We'll happily help you out, understand your destination.
Wonderful. That's great. Thank you so much for that. Especially interesting. I work, well, at GDS we work, but I'm the relationship manager for the UK destinations, and also work with Visit England. So been really interested to follow their work. And yeah, I see so many opportunities for destinations here, just to kind of get a better understanding what's happening in their destination, and working obviously with the businesses, but also I guess how Booking.com and some of the other platforms are using it, also providing reliable check data to the client, right, to the customer. So because I think a lot of certification bodies, and I worked for a DMO and for a certification body, so but you know, you want to get out there, right, and you want to be seen, and a lot of DMOs don't always promote the certification as well as they can, because it's connected with a lot of work. So really interesting, and loads of opportunity. We have a few questions in the chat, so let's go and have a look at that. So there was a question around the global data and where there might be concentrations, which also brought up the thought. I think you'd mentioned it's not just globally available certification like EarthCheck or Green Key or things, but also some things like Nordic Swan. You know, it might be quite regional, or the Austrian eco label is just happening in Austria. So do you have, it's a wide range of eco label types, and do you see a concentration there?
We are of course global and cover global certifications, as you mentioned. Reason why we have relied on the GSTC and Travelist is because that's been requirements from the marketplaces we've been working with. In the discussions with other destinations after I went to Bruges, was that how about local certifications or certification schemes like the ones that there is in Finland, also know of Switzerland with Sustainable. Like if you as a destination have a local certification that you rely on, we are open to work with them and share the data to you and make that available to you. So because we're working with those, that's just been requirements from the marketplaces, because they're sharing data to a broader audience compared to you're using it for internal analysis, for example, and might know more about the local scheme than Booking.com might do. So it is, of course, we can work with everyone. We want to work with everyone, but of course we've been focusing on that exact certification schemes that we've been able to share to the marketplaces.
Yeah, and just to add on, basically we can read in data from all certifications around the world. Then you, on the other side, can pick which certifications you want to have shown in your data set. So it's basically they have a tag, and then you can show it.
Yeah, and I'm assuming you can, there will be some that are non-existent in some countries. So you could kind of leave those out for now. Excellent, great. There's a question around the levels of rigor, and I think you did mention kind of Travelist and GSTC. So is that kind of your prompt, like they need to be accepted, or the criteria needs to be GSTC recognized, or Travelist with their relatively new program has given them the stamp of approval in order for you to kind of display them more?
Yeah, exactly. So we are the middleman. We're a data provider, right? So we won't stamp anything. We won't say that this certification is better than this or the opposite. So we rely on industry organizations that do the vetting and the audit. So until now, we also have certifications approaching us directly and say, hey, we would love to be shown on Booking.com or Google or Jet2Holidays, etc. And then we usually tell them to go through either GSTC and Travelist. And as most of you probably know, it's an ever-changing environment within those industry organizations and certifications. But we follow them because the industry at the moment follows them. So we just follow industry trends. Once we have the Green Claims Directive and there's a new way of doing the certification schemes, we'll follow that. So basically, that's what we do at the moment. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, and I think it's like you said, it's a very interesting and moving, ever-shifting landscape at the moment around certification and what's approved. And I know some destinations have said they get a sense that some hotels might be going for it or holding back because they're like, I don't know, is this going to be the right one, or how to choose what will happen in 2 years' time? So that kind of speaks a little bit to the question that was mentioned there around if you've seen any trends that are kind of emerging in that certification for hotels. Do you see a certain concentration on a type of certification, or that it's accelerating or decelerating? I don't know if anything has kind of stood out or come up looking at the data.
We can definitely do an analysis because we have the data, but I think it's more about giving you the data to do the analysis. But for instance, for England, we saw green tourism was the most popular one, probably because it's based in the country and probably has a bigger name. But Green Keys, of course, globally with 40 offices, the certification with most certified hotels, so to say. But it is very based on regions. EarthCheck, I think, is quite bigger in the APAC area. So it is quite, I think it's very a local, a domestic work the certifications do. And that typically follows the popularity as well. So again, we have the data, we can show it to you, then it's up to you how to work with it. But again, as much more data we have, we will be able to give more recommendations, maybe have something live on our homepage, etc. So again, data is king. As much more we have, as much more benchmark analytics, etc. Are we able to provide you? Yeah.
That's great. There's another question here to clarify the source of the data. As far as I understand it, you get it directly from the certification bodies to make sure that it is accurate. So I'm not accusing any hotel about lying about their certification, but just to make sure. So, and then obviously you get that in bulk, and then you can input it into your system. So to increase reliability, accuracy, and up-to-dateness.
Yes,
so
exactly.
I've answered the question. Is that correct?
Yeah, that answers the question.
Correct. And we also have API connections to most of them. So every time something happens, it's live updated in our system. And now back to what you said before. It's actually now you said some hotels are holding back because it's difficult to figure out what to do. But the opposite of that is all the large chains have actually KPIs set, quite strict KPIs in how big a percentage of their hotels they would need to have certified in 25 and 26. When we speak to the Accors and Marriott and IHGs, so they're also looking into having a higher number of certified properties. Even though the landscape can be difficult to understand sometimes. So that's also when we're like in the middle, so we get so much intel, both from marketplaces, from hotel chains, from certifications, from destinations. So, and like the North Star here is basically everybody wants to work towards better sustainable practices, and a step to do it with data is to have more certified establishments.
Yeah, it's definitely a way of getting the industry on that journey, and also a very measurable way. And I guess as much as it's not a clear landscape, but it's probably a relatively good assumption that some of the big certifications that are out there that have a good membership, that have operated in a very solid and credible way, will look to match whatever legal requirements will come. So it's not like they're suddenly all going to disappear. Fingers crossed. So great. There's one more question. For interest of time, but we can obviously also pick up some of these afterwards. A really interesting one is the idea of penetration rates in certain countries. So I guess, and we always ask, we don't just want to know how many, but what percentage of existing hotel rooms or stock. So that means you need to have in your database all the hotels in a destination. Is that something that you can do or are working towards, or where is that?
That is something that we're working to do, because obviously there's something this is not the first one, but it's a very valid and good question in terms of the penetration stock, because where are we? And that's also back to the presentation. That's what I also talked a lot about, like give you an accurate overview of how it's looking. I also know that different destinations has different overviews of how they're performing. We just need a reliable source, and that's something that we're looking to now in each country, that we can rely. So if they say that there is 3,000 hotels within a country, it is pretty easy for us to just create a dashboard and give a percentage of penetration in a specific market. So it is something we're working on. It is something that if we're working with a specific, so in this case, Visit England, for example, if they have a reliable source for us to know, okay, so we have this, or if you have the overview yourself, it's pretty easy for us to build that into your dashboard. But also to answer the question in terms of, yes, it is pretty low. Sustainability is a journey, but is it really low in terms of the lack of focus for the past, I don't know how many years? I think the penetration is actually quite good for a starter. But obviously, we're working, as also mentioned, with the OTAs like Booking.com, Google, TUI, EasyJet, but also working with you actively as destinations to get the penetration up. And how do we do that? Create an easier. So our step one is create an easier way for hotels and partners to actually get a certification, because that's been very difficult. It is a difficult journey to do, but we've created an easier way with our hotel self-assessment. And the push, we do that with our partners. We cannot do it ourselves. So we need you as destinations to promote this, to get your partners to use it, but also do the push where there is a large amount of hotels in a database, for example, Booking.com. So I know that the marketplace is not just destinations, but marketplaces also have goals in terms of reaching a certain amount of certified properties. So I would definitely say that yes, right now it might be low, but we still need to have the overview to know to get from A to B.
Yeah, just to add on, I know for wonderful Copenhagen, our neighbors here in Copenhagen, they asked for the split in certified and non-certified. So we're actually building it right now, because we have pretty good sources here in Denmark to figure out the exact amount of hotels at the moment. So, but our tech team is trying to look for a larger database worldwide, so we could do one kind of connection and give you a split. So that's going to be developed quite soon.
Great. Yeah, I know it varies quite, and some countries have a registration thing where every business needs to register, so you can get quite accurate data. In other countries, they don't. So it's quite a varied picture there as well. And with penetration rates, it's interesting because especially a lot of the destination we work with as a city, you have the opportunity to influence to really maximize penetration rates. I mean, some of our, top 40 destinations have been working very hard at increasing that percentage of certified hotel beds and things to, some of them have well over 50, 60, 70, 80% of the hotel beds in their destinations certified. So maybe on a national level, it can be quite low, but if you're working on your destination, you can really create that. And that's an added selling point for your destination. So Great, so many questions. I think we need to move on, but we will collect the questions and share those. And Simon and Asam, like if there's any things we can share afterwards, that would be really useful as well.
We can
great.
share the so
yes, or answer them in the chat. That's great. That's also a good idea. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. And I would like to welcome Tarek Habib from Murmuration. Tarek, we're really looking forward to hearing from you and all the amazing data that is out there and how you're using it to kind of show on destinations for all different types of indicators, be they environmental or social, and what you can offer with data. So can I just hand over to you for you to share your presentation? That would be great.
Can you see my screen? Yeah?
Yes.
Very good. So yeah, good morning, everybody. Thanks a lot for having me here. It's really, really nice to be part of this discussion. And we're very happy also to collaborate with the GDS team, like-minded people, with the goal, and because obviously with the goal to push the industry towards more sustainability. A quick word about Murmuration. So we established the company in March 2019. I've put March because we are almost 6 years old now. We're based in Toulouse, southwest of France. We are a team of 20 today, with an engineering team of 15. You will understand why we are putting emphasis on this when I get more and more into what we're doing. It's basically just to ensure that we are at the state of the art when it comes to environmental indicators, climate change simulations, and modeling. We have many references in the industry. We can read this from the top to the bottom, from I would say institutional or more international coordination bodies like UN Tourism, Atout France in France, and different different institutions, to DMOs and tourism authorities, and also with industry leaders like Accor, Compagnie des Alpes, for example, whom we work with. The bottom part is the strange entities in the slide. It's really the European Space Agency, the French Space Agency, the European Commission, and the European Space Agency for Programs. There are two space agencies in Europe. It's basically because we come from the aerospace industry, and this facilitates a lot of things in what we are developing when it comes to data collection and providing indicators all across the globe. Now, what do we do? I think that we try to basically give a 360 view of the environmental situation of a destination. A destination can be big as it can be very small. It can be a point. So it's we provide the indicators on different scales, and we try to connect the dots between the environmental situation in the past, today, climate projections in the future, but also its links to how do we perform certain activities in the destination, how these activities may be impacted by the environmental progression or projections, be it enhancement or deterioration, but also at the end derive a carrying capacity. So yeah, just to give you some examples of this. So we assess the environment, and we study the impact on and of the tourism activities in the destination on the environment. So this link, we establish this link. Obviously, we have this capacity to assess the status of the environment on any point across the globe. So we take this information and then we correlate it with the tourism flows in the destination to try to derive this causality relation, right? Dependency from one side, because most of the tourism activities are actually dependent on the environment, but also they impact the environment. So we put numbers basically on this relationship. And then we compare it to existing standards. When it comes to air pollution, for example, it will be the World Health Organization standards. Other standards apply in in other domains like water, biodiversity, etc. We assess, based on this environmental status, we assess also the attractivity of the destination, so how attractive it is. This is something that is quite interesting when it comes to seasonality, for example. We have had cases, worked with several destinations just to give them hard data in order to understand what they can promote in which season. For example, the shoulder season, so this is less frequent season, so what can we promote in this in these seasons? Another service that we provide is what we call the climate simulator, or something to assess the resilience of tourism activities when it comes to changing environmental conditions and future climate projections. So at each point we say, okay, today we can go diving and the score is 9.7 out of 10. If these conditions change, what would be the score? And consequently, how many providers in the area, that is my area of interest, would be impacted by this change? Do I have, I don't know, X diving instructors or diving centers, for example? Or do I have guides, nature guides, or, for example, restaurants when it comes to gastronomy? So how would they be impacted? So we are able actually to put numbers on this. First for a score, and then to link them to the ensemble of the providers in the destination. Climate simulations, so effects of climate change, sea level rise, temperatures, snow, precipitation, etc. So we assess this and we provide a tool, an interactive tool, just to enable the destination to be able to relate to that and to see this very clearly. And finally, carrying capacity, environmental carrying capacity. So to say, okay, this territory can host X number of people without having a negative impact on the environment. We provide these guidance daily, weekly, monthly, and seasonally on vegetation and on air pollution. We are working on providing carrying capacity also on water, so on water pressure. So that's something. It doesn't mean that if you add one person or if you remove one person, everything will change, but it gives you a very clear guidelines of the tipping points, basically, of how you would impact the environment. And if you reach a specific range, it will have significant impact, or an impact that can deteriorate the environment on the long term. So that's basically the ensemble of the tools that we offer. Obviously, they all come in a standard view. They are operational services that are deployed in several destinations today. But there is also much room for customization. So we can incorporate the data coming from you, for example, flow data. We have a solution for that, but it's if you already have flow data or providers data, like tourism stakeholders, hotels, activities, and so on, that you already have, we integrate them to the tools and we integrate them to the analysis, and then we can augment it with your existing knowledge. Now, I'm going to try to give in the next 10 minutes, I'll try to give some focus points. So focus on the indicators. I've said in the beginning that we are an engineering team, we come from the aerospace industry and so on, so all of this is nice, but why this is relevant? Because we are basically the indicators that we are deriving comes from satellite Earth observation data. This has a very significant power because it provides a global coverage across the whole globe. So there has been a question earlier about, for example, data concentration for Europe, US, where there are more data than elsewhere. In our case, the data is homogeneous. At least the basis is homogeneous. Obviously, if there are specific data coming from the destination, like what we call in situ sensors, measuring specific quantities, say air pollution, that's quite common, or water quality, that is also quite common. We can integrate them, and we integrate them actually in the indicators, but we are able to provide the indicators anywhere across the globe. We have a baseline that also opens the way to benchmarking, exchanging best practices. Like in this destination, we implemented this. Was it beneficial? Was it useless? And so on. And we can actually quantify this, right? So that's one of the major advantages of satellite Earth observation beta. The second advantage is that it's a very good time machine, because in any spot across the globe, we have at least an archive of 7 years in the past. So that's start with, but in some places we have actually 20, 30 years in the past. So we can go back and we can perform this multi-temporal analysis and to see how the destination has evolved under different different conditions. So that's basically two strong advantages of the solutions. The environmental indicators that we deliver assess biodiversity, land, water, air. So that's a comprehensive. I've put just some examples here. At total, there are 25 indicators. Climate indicators, obviously, and then we combine those two in order to derive the attractivity indicators. How does it look like? So just some focus on environmental monitoring here that we developed with Turismo de Portugal, who's one of the destinations who adopted this part. If you remember this environmental monitoring part, so it comes in full web dashboard that is accessible to the team, easy to export. Usually we have just one button to export the information if you want to integrate it in other tools that are existing. Here we're looking at, for example, a biodiversity score with the constituents. So you have land use, climate change, human encroachment, habitat fragmentation, road disturbances, and nitrogen deposition. And all of these are combined together in order to have the biodiversity impact or the biodiversity health in the destination. And obviously we can show the progression across time. So here we went back to 1990 and we went to 2024. I'm just showing 2020 because I didn't get the full approval for publishing the data, so I stopped at 2020. Another example is the climate simulator. That's a quite sophisticated yet very simple tool to use. So basically what you can see, so on the top left, you have a map with the different tourism stakeholders, so providers who are providing activities, be it a hotel, restaurant, as I mentioned earlier. And then on the middle side, you have the scoring for each one of these activities. Obviously, you have for each one of them, if you look at hiking, for example, you will find 3.6 and then 3.6 right after it. It's just because you can do simulations in the right pan. You can enhance air quality, for example, and see how it would impact the providers of the hiking activities or outdoor activities and so on. On the bottom, you can see the evolution of the environmental situation. So here, these were the choices basically of MTA. So here you have the air quality, air temperature, precipitation, vegetation health, and wind speed. And then to see, okay, how did it evolve over time? You can play the simulation manually on the right-hand side. You can see plus, minus, and so on. So you can play the simulation manually, or you can select a specific climate scenario, and then you just play the climate scenario, and then you can see directly the scores and also how many providers would be impacted by this. Focus on attractivity of locations in this case. This is a portal that we delivered for Accor, covering more or less 20% of their hotels worldwide. But I'm just showing you a sneak peek of one of the hotels here. So basically, so we score the accessibility. Accessibility, it's not in terms, it's in terms of road, airports, and so on. So that's accessibility here. While eco-mobility is the green paths that lead to this point, and then biodiversity, bathing comfort, and so on. We set a score for each one of them by season, so spring, summer, autumn, and so on. And then we can also do projections in the future. And what I wanted to show you here is that it's not only about scoring numbers and so on, but we also provide what we call narratives. So this is what you're seeing on the left side. So basically how to interpret this data. It's an easy way to get from a number to just a quick finding, right? So So it's yeah. So with a small recommendation, for example, just to get you a jump start into benefiting from the data that is available. So here, for example, you can see bathing comfort is highest from September to November with warm water temperature. So that's also okay, state of the obvious, but it's set with numbers, I would say. Marketing efforts could target water-based activities during this period to maximize appeal. And this is just a recommendation based on that, and can also be put compared to other hotels that are in the area. In order to prepare these narratives, we create 3 different personas today, but we're trying to be more of that. For the narratives to be dedicated, for example, for the travelers, for the hotel operators, for the directors, and for potentially the centralized management team. So in this case, it will be Accor. So it's the team in the headquarters working with the hotel, and each one of them will have a different narrative depending on the view that he likes. Traveler will be just interested in the hotel, while, for example, Accor would be interested in comparing this hotel with others that are in similar areas. So we are generating these as well. So it's a way to take into account this data and to use it operationally. Augmenting reporting with data. This is something that we are currently doing more and more because there are a number of people who have started the path on the taking into account the climate change and environment in general via reports. The problem with reports is that they are performed and then they show the status at a given time, obviously. So they tell you, okay, at this date, the environmental situation was this, the climate risks were that, and so on. And now we're getting more and more requests in order to augment the reports with dynamic data that gets updated automatically till the next time that people will be able to do a full report or a full assessment once again. So in this case, we actually put the relevant parts from the report, so the document here, and then the dynamic data on the right with key findings, and then the developments. And actually, the data gets updated regularly. So it's when we say regularly, it's really once every week, for example. And then at each time we have a new data point, we update all the interfaces. This way, you have a dynamic view of the environmental assessment or the climate assessment that was already performed. Finally, a focus on carrying capacity. So here, this is work that we did for Gavarnie, so in the Pyrenees in France. It's just to show you how these things look like. Here, this is also, we are drawing on the power of what I said earlier, that we have historical data that goes back many years. So we are able to draw what we call a statistical profile for vegetation to show how it evolves naturally and how it evolves under human stress, and then to derive these ranges that you can see here. So low impact, moderate impact, and high impact, and then to cross this with the flows, historical flows, in order to project in the future and to say, okay, if you are hosting X number of people, this would be the impact that you would expect on vegetation and on air pollution. As I mentioned, we're working now on water stress as well. Finally, something that is also important, I think, this is a very new tool. It's not yet developed, deployed operationally. It has been developed, but we'll be deploying it in Malta soon. And it's a public and a traveler-facing tool in order to help them choose, basically during their stay, to choose the activities that are less impactful on the environment and that are the most suited to the environmental conditions that they are experiencing during their stay. So basically, you would be visiting Malta at some point, and then we will show you, okay, these are the best activities that you can do, and then on the map, when you click, you can get in contact directly with a provider of this activity. So this is a very operational. It's quite innovative, but it's a very operational way in order also to help travelers do the right choice, I would say, from an environmental perspective during their stay. So the tool provides 4 4 recommendations per day, depending. So we split the day in 4 time spans, and then in the morning, in the afternoon, evening, and late during the night. So this way they will have different recommendations for each time span, and then they can get directly in contact with the providers of these activities to book and then to move forward. I'll now leave the floor probably to Leslie to comment on that.
Hi, Leslie. Thank you for joining us. I'm really excited to hear. Thank you very much, Tarek, for the introduction on what Murmuration does. And Leslie, if you could share with us what you've done in Malta and how you've really used that information, and that would be fascinating.
Thank you for having me, and thank you, Tarek, for using the Malta examples. I'll be brief because I know I only have 5 minutes. I come from Malta, which is a very small country, 300 square kilometers with 550,000 residents and 3,600,000 tourists. So obviously it's a place where managing tourism is of utmost importance. I think that over the years, there has been a very huge emphasis on measuring tourism's impacts, but very little has been done on measuring impacts on tourism. And in the world we live on today, and with the data available today, such as the services provided by Murmuration, we can flip the situation so that rather than only reviewing tourism in terms of its impacts on environment, its impacts on transport, its impacts on all types of activity in the territory, we are also in a position to understand further external impacts on tourism and how they will affect the types of tourism we need to attract, the types of adaptations that we need to do. Basically, we are living in a very densely populated territory, as I said, which is, besides being densely populated with very small surface area, also has low coastal areas, is highly water stressed with reducing rainfall, and also has a landscape which is challenged because of development and also lack of rainfall. So with Murmuration and being able to focus on air, land, and sea impacts on tourism, we find ourselves in a much better situation to understand what needs to be done to adapt tourism to the future by understanding the present and being able to do scenario planning. One other point which is of relevance, especially for small destinations, for small jurisdictions, is that the resolution of the data, if we go back 10, 15 years, Malta itself, the entire country, would have been a single pixel of data on satellite imagery. Today, even for a small territory, the size of a medium-sized city, the detail that the data affords us is so strong that it allows us to pinpoint within a few meters. And when you live and operate in a very small territory, you know every pixel on that map. So you can literally understand and follow what is happening over a period of time and plan for the future, taking advantage of this huge increase in technology. So part of what we're doing, to conclude, part of what we are doing consists of an understanding and learning of what changes to the sea, what about seawater turbidity, how will that affect scuba diving, how will that affect the attractiveness of the beaches for people to swim, how will it affect marine life in our seas, are alien species proliferating, are local species moving away, moving northwards, moving southwards, how is the quality of the air going to affect tourism and life in the country, and how is plant health. Plant health is a very important aspect, because obviously tourists don't only come for the attractions but also for the landscape, and if you are not monitoring what's happening to the landscape in terms of its gastronomic food production, in terms of its attractiveness, and the character of the destination, etc., you are losing a lot. So basically, we started off with the basic elements, air, land, and sea, and the obvious impacts, and now going as per the example which Tarek shared, now going into areas where we can do simulations. Obviously, climate change is something I don't need to mention, to see what different variables will cause in terms of impacts, but also moving towards the possibility of giving tourists themselves a tool which they can use even in terms of short-term planning to maximize their holiday. Is August the best time to come for a hiking holiday? Probably not. You know, that type of thing. So it takes into advantage the timely data, the regularly updated data, and the detailed localized data to turn this into a tool which even a small destination can put to good use. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leslie. I think that's really interesting because, like you said, with climate change, we all know it's here, it's coming, it's potentially probably going to get worse, and we're feeling the impact, but what exactly that looks like, and to really get a handle on that and be able to apply that to how would that impact tourism in the destination. I can imagine that a lot of the data that Murmuration can provide is, and even to see, I thought it was interesting what Tarek said, to be like, you know, I know that I think, well, it's definitely used to snow more here in winter, you know, the things where you're like, what had changed, but it feels like a gut feeling. Whereas if you have that historical data to see how have we already changed and had to adapt, and what could that look like in the future? Are there any other kind of examples? I mean, I know it's probably early days with trying to, because I can imagine that having the knowledge is really useful, and then turning it into like a actionable, like, okay, how can we take action, or what action are we taking based on all this information?
If I may add, I mean,
Yeah.
one of the most interesting outcomes of this relationship which we have had, and the knowledge that we have added, is that it has helped us get out of the traditional boundaries of what trying to understand tourism used to be. Because when you talk about landscape, that's environment, that's agriculture. If you talk about water, that's water services. If you talk about the coast, it's somebody else. So all of these elements, which we are now adding to our understanding and sort of more holistic analysis of the environment surrounding our tourism industry, used to lie until recently completely outside our interest, completely outside our knowledge, completely outside our competence. And now, armed with this, we can confidently build bridges with other aspects of the administration to enable us to deliver tourism's message and bring knowledge to the tourism sector. Because for far too long, in tourism, we have worked the splendid isolation of a few variables, and today we are understanding that isolation leads to wrong interpretations, because you're completely ignoring the realities around you. And this is what it has helped us do: build a bigger picture by taking us out of that safety zone.
Yeah, it's like not taking, I think for a long time, you know, the culture, the heritage, nature was kind of seen as the backdrop, you know, taking it for granted. This is why visitors, you know, rather than being like, this is why visitors come. So we need to make sure we consider tourism's impact on it, but also, you know, how will tourism change if the climate changes in the future, and how can we strategically adapt kind of long term? We do have a question, and it says, I'm not sure, maybe this is one for Tarek, but how does the impact of tourism on landscape and sea, how is that determined? Or how is it different from kind of climate change in general?
That's basically because the analysis that we do is what we call anomaly based. So what we do, since we have this global coverage, let's say, for example, for the Mediterranean, when we look at Malta, for example, so we have access, we derive the data and the indicators all across the coastlines, for example, or the landscape in Malta, right? So we start by this, and then we try to detect the anomalies in there. Right, so it's we set a baseline because we have the historical data. When it comes to differentiating, because there are two questions in one, differentiating with climate change, let's say that since 2017, 2018, this is where we see actual and strong changes with respect when compared to past meteorological data. So we take this cutoff date, 2017, 2019, depending on the area, and then we draw the evolution of each point, of each pixel. You can imagine it's like a 10 meter per 10 meter pixel. So we take the evolution of each one of them, and then we detect the anomalies. We see where there are outliers in this evolution, and we say, okay, this is not normal. This is due to an increased human impact in this area, and we identify it. We cross-correlate then with the data available on tourism activities in the area. If there are tourism infrastructures, hospitality areas, activity areas, if we have flow data or not, and so on. And this is how we isolate this part, and we say this is likely related to the tourism activities in this area, right? So that's, yeah, I'm trying to put this like as simple as possible, but this is how we proceed.
Right. Yeah, I think that, like, obviously having access to all that data, that kind of is really useful in kind of how you can analyze it and the assumptions and correlations you can make. There is another question, and I think how you measure accessibility with satellite data. I think that just requires some clarification on what you mean with accessibility in your
Exactly. I think I had this before, and we need to change that. But it's so accessibility is not really with it doesn't concern people with mobility difficulties. It's really accessibility in terms of road infrastructures, airports, what types of roads and so on. This is what we qualify actually as accessibility. This is why we have two categories, accessibility and eco-mobility. We do the differentiation between both. So accessibility is basically trains, planes, and roads for cars, and then eco-mobility is paths, walking ways, biking, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's not, we definitely need to change this this label, because it doesn't relate to people. We unfortunately were not able to derive this directly from satellite data today.
Great. Anna, you've raised your hand. You have another question.
Yeah, this question is for Leslie. I was interested in how having this new amount of data has expanded or given you the opportunity to expand your mandate. And what does that look like from a staffing capacity in your team? How are you, do you have a role now that's working directly with this system and with this data on an annual basis?
Okay. We have coincided the work which we have been doing with Murmuration with the setting up of the Malta Tourism Observatory, which is still something relatively in its infancy, but it already benefits from 2 full-time people, a manager and an executive. The intention is to grow the human resource capacity and the expertise of the observatory, to have somebody who can literally interpret and work with the Murmuration data in a more direct manner. Besides this, we coincidentally this week we have also been in receipt of a set of tourism sustainability indicators which were formulated for us by the OECD. And again, the adaptation of those tourism sustainability indicators by the observatory, the adoption rather than the adaptation, the adoption of these indicators and the measurement of these indicators will become integral functions within the observatory. What comes out, as you rightly point out, is that you need different skill sets. You need different skill sets because you need to understand what you are dealing with. And you also need people who can interface with other public authorities, the planning authority, the transport authority, the water people. Because obviously, once you're going out of your traditional boundaries, you need to know what you're saying. But already armed with this information, it gives you a credibility. Whereas in the past, it was keep off, this is not your territory, you don't know anything about it. Now, when we're armed with this information, we are in a stronger place. We are in a stronger place to discuss these matters. So we have put a structure in place, which is the observatory, which focuses very extensively on sustainability. we have started to man it, but we will need 1 or 2 more people who are more scientifically inclined rather than from traditional tourism related disciplines to be able to merge these 2 sets of knowledge together more effectively.
Thank you. Very exciting for our industry to see these opportunities for new jobs and roles and just the expansion of the impact of tourism. I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that was a really interesting point because it made me think of the GDS-Index. It actually makes people go out and speak to other departments in their city and gather data from them to kind of build this slightly broader picture of tourism and the impact of tourism. But I'm sure some of your colleagues in the other departments were quite jealous of all the fancy data that you have.
It wasn't easy to start with because there was a lot of skepticism, and you get funny questions. Why are you doing this? It's not really our area. It's not really our responsibility. It's not really our business. But eventually, once the deliverables start coming and people start seeing the pixels filling up the empty screen, and
Yeah.
suddenly they start appreciating what we've gone into. It was a bit of a risk, but I'm also lucky that I have the support of some people who believe in what we are doing, and they give you the leeway to go into some experimental territory.
That's great. And I'm sure that, it was probably exciting once they got to see it, exciting to see, even for them to see that data, and that a lot of it was useful. So that's great. There's another question, and obviously we have a fair few of our partners in North America and in Canada on the call. So there's an element, I think what was fascinating, you mentioned it now, Tarek, so obviously everything is satellite data. So there's, you're not relying on the destination having data. Obviously, if they want to bring data that they have to the table and integrate it in the analysis that you're doing, that's great. But there's a certain baseline of data you can get from satellites. Does that also apply to quite remote Canadian areas?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's basically the baseline that we provide is based on a European-backed, EU Commission-backed program that is called Copernicus. So that provides actually a very good monitoring capacity on all what we call emerged lands. Basically, the only limitation that we will have is the North Pole and the South Pole. This is where there are areas that we do not cover, but it's for the moment I don't think that's a very heavy tourism place, and hopefully it will continue to be like this. But it's we have very good coverage for Canada, and if we want to go, because I mentioned that we can go till 50 centimeters, we have access to commercial satellites that provide this type of data for the whole Canadian territory, including, by the way, North American constellations like Maxar, for example, or stuff like that. So it's the Sentinel satellites, parts of this Copernicus program, actually provides the raw data that then we process, obviously, and we extract. We put it in our AI models and we extract the information, but they cover the whole Canadian territory.
That's great. I am conscious of time, but we actually have more than I thought, and I was really interested in examples you've provided in the past of some of the work you've done in cities, especially with the heat islands. And if you could just briefly mention that, because I know obviously we work with a lot of cities, I think it gives another really nice example of how this data can be applied.
Yeah, absolutely. So with cities, we worked with in 2 types of applications. So we worked with, for the urban heat island effects, we worked with mobility operators who were setting up new bus lines and service lines, basically, and they wanted to optimize first the location of the bus stops, and second, to make them as nice as possible in high extreme heat events, for them to be as comfortable as possible for the travelers. So where to put shades, where to put trees. Is it viable to put a tree, by the way, or not? Because it's something that because you can put vegetation and then after 3 months it just dies because there's not enough enough water or stuff like that. So where to put this and where to put water fountains as well, just for the wait and the journey for the travelers and the users of the service be as comfortable as possible. So we worked with Transdev, that's one of the biggest mobility providers in France, in a specific location, Montpellier, to optimize these bus stops and to make them as comfortable as possible for the travelers. So that was one example. And the another example is that we worked with Parc Astérix. So that's a theme park. So we helped them identify the heat hotspots in their in the theme park, and basically just showing them the priority areas where they should deploy their resources in order to make as well. We know that in theme park, as Parc Astérix is like the French Disneyland. So sometimes you can wait for 40 minutes, 1 hour before riding something in the park. So how to deal with that, how to make the wait as nice as possible for the users and so on. That's another example as well of what we did in urban areas. And more generally, what we do a lot of things in urban setups. So there is heat, but there is also vegetation that's very important. So the average distance between a location and the vegetation area, an open area, that's also a very good indication. The size of green spaces, that's also a very important aspect. And something that is quite nice is pleasant trails. It's something that we developed as well in Malta. It's basically you provide the points of interest, and then it's some sort of like navigation, a new age navigation application for the pedestrians to tell them, okay, to go from point A, point B, it's not only a question of optimizing time, it optimizes time, but also is it a pleasant trail that you're taking or not? So it provides you with, okay, I want to go sightseeing, I want to see these points of interest. I'm not necessarily interested in walking quickly in main roads or something like that. I have some time as well. So we give you the most pleasant route when it comes to air, temperature, vegetation, and sightseeing as well, and points of interest. So that's another application that we developed for cities. Yeah.
That's great. I think there's some really good examples of how the data could be used to support a better experience for residents and for visitors. So all around really fascinating. So thank you very much, Tarek. Thank you very much, Leslie. I don't see any more questions in the chat. If there are any more questions you have now, anybody else? Okay, great. So I will just finish off with sharing a couple of slides. So yes, what's next? Really, I guess what we wanted to kind of say, we're at GDS Move, we're really excited to be working with Because and with Murmuration, and to really see what both of those companies have done and grown and all the work they're already doing, and how can we collaborate and work together to further kind of drive regeneration in destinations, and especially, you know, destinations that we're working with. So one of the ways, and it's already been mentioned, is for the GDS-Index, so that we can use data that is available to enhance that sustainability evidence for destinations. So we're starting to explore that. Where is there data for some index questions like in the environment section around air quality, renewable energy, green and blue areas, those kinds of things that Murmuration can potentially provide access to. So those are areas that we're exploring. And then obviously with Because, to really strengthen the data on kind of supplier engagement and certification. So especially around hotels, that's something that we're looking at for this year, to look to supply our destinations with a kind of base data. There will be additional information the destinations need to provide, as in a full list of hotels, number of beds and things like that. But it's a really interesting start at the beginning of that journey to look at how we can really facilitate and utilize that partnership to make the index slightly easier for our destinations, but also use that kind of common data set. But beyond that, we're really also happy to work with any destinations to provide that kind of more tailored data solution for the DMOs. So there's the data that's available from both companies, but really to combine that with kind of the strategic guidance that GDS can provide on, what is the data and how can we really leverage that? What actions can we take, should we take? And you can, you've already got an indication of the kind of custom analytics and reporting you can get to really drive those sustainability actions and, change policy and how can you really implement action. So for anybody who's interested, obviously, I think both Murmuration and because we'll be at ITB, for anybody who is at ITB, do pop by and say hi and find out a bit more. But for anybody who's interested, how this might help your destination, please do let us know and we can kind of connect you with either of the teams and work out on some data solutions for you. So a very quick reminder, our excellent Regenerative Destination Management Certificate course is coming up soon. So that will start at the beginning of March. We still have some spaces remaining. So if there's anybody out there who's humming or hawing, please do join us. This is a fabulous course over 11 weeks. You'll find out about all sorts of things with regards to really driving regenerative tourism, including how to use data, but also be it climate action, be it building capacity, events, impact and legacy, resident engagement, a whole range of topics. So that can really help and upskill you and build capacity all around. And it's not just that. I think everybody really benefits from building those networks because it's all usually a really great group of people from all around the world joining. So don't miss out, and please have a look at our Academy website to see if you can join the course starting in March. So that was it from us today.